So welcome to the Introduction to Plant Pathology class. So today we're going to be talking and discussing a little bit about the types of plant diseases. That means that we're going to be discussing some of the symptoms, the classic symptoms of some of the plant diseases, as well as the causing agents, either fungi or bacteria. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the actual disease and some of the most typical characteristic symptoms. And I'm going to give some specific examples for some of these diseases, as well as the host that where this plant pathogens cause disease. So first, I want to talk or remind you about the types of plant pathogens that we have discussed in class a little bit. So this can be biotic or abiotic. So the biotic factors can be fungi, bacteria, nematodes, as well as viruses, and also parasitic plants. I just kind of separated parasitic plants because we have not covered those yet, but we will in a future class. And also we have the abiotic factors, which is just the environmental conditions that can cause some type of diseases. These ones are either extremes in temperature, moisture, light, nutrients, pH, salinity. When we talk about extremes, like for example in temperature, that means like drought or extreme cold or freezes and stuff like that. When we talk about moistures, it can be like either flooding or too much water, or drought as well. So I mean there are different factors, but again, those factors we're going to cover in a future class. So for the types of plant diseases, we have foliar diseases and we can have vascular diseases, and they cause different types of symptoms. And for foliar diseases, I'm going to be talking today about the powdery mildews, downy mildews, some of the necrotic foliar diseases, and for this ones I have like 3 different examples, which is like greasy spot in citrus, fire blight of apples and pears, and also citrus scab. And another one that I'm going to be discussing about foliar diseases is abnormal color and form, which is caused by viruses mainly. And I'm going to be including some videos where I was actually able to see those symptoms out there. So I took like short videos, so I'm going to include it in the lecture for today. And for the next class, we're going to be covering about the vascular diseases, and this one's going to be vascular wilts, xylem limited fastidious bacteria, like for example Pierce's disease in grapes, and also phloem limited fastidious bacteria, which is the classic example is Wanglongbing, which is caused by a bacterium that causes a disease in citrus, and it's also known as citrus greening, but that we're going to cover that next class. So for powdery mildews, this disease is normally host specific, and they are biotroph, which means that they're obligate parasites. They need to have their host alive in order for it to cause disease. So it cannot be cultured in vitro. It has to be in a living host. So as we discussed in previous lectures, which obligate parasites means that they don't kill their host, or that they take very, very long time to actually kill the host or kill the tissue that they're infecting. And one specific characteristic about powdery mildews is that the pathogen is going to remain on the top layer of the leaf, like in the leaf surface. They usually cause, like they have a very superficial white mycelium that is covering the top part of the leaf. And also humid conditions and excessive nitrogen promote disease. I mean, that's something that very specific about this disease, this type of disease. Nitrogen is very important because sometimes if you add too much nitrogen to a plant, what's going to happen is going to induce a lot of growth, because it's one of the major minerals or nutrients that is required for the leaves or for the plant to grow and start producing more tissue. So the more nitrogen you add, the faster the leaf growth and the growth from the plant is going to happen. So the tissue may be like more tender. So because of that, it's more susceptible to some of these diseases, and especially powdery mildews. So powdery mildews are gonna grow on the top of the leaf, and then the way that they're gonna absorb nutrients is they produce this specialized hyphae, which is called haustoria. So what's gonna happen is that as the fungus is growing on top of the leaf surface, is going to penetrate the cells, and it's going to have these specific structures that are going to go inside the leaf and inside the cells, and then those little arms, as you can see in the slide, they're gonna be absorbing the nutrients from the plant cell, and then transport it back into the to the actual fungus that is just growing on the surface. So powdery mildews are from the family of the ascomycetes. They in general they're white. They have a white septate hyphae, and they produce oval white conidia in pseudochains. And this is just one example, or basically just a diagram of how the powdery mildew is going to be growing on top of the leaf surface, and then it's going to have these little strings like coming out, and then the chain of conidia that are one on top of the other. And then on the other picture is just like the actual conidia, like one of them is just the diagram, and then the haustoriad, which is inside the cells, and then some of the other tissues. So because they are ascomycetes, they produce different types of fruiting bodies. The fruiting body that the powdery mildews are gonna produce is called the Cleistothecia, and this is the overwintering fruiting body, and it's gonna be produced near the end of the growing season. So basically, to the beginning of the season, what's gonna happen is that it's just basically the pathogen is just reproducing and reproducing and reproducing, and it's gonna continue to expand and infect more leaves with the conidia that is being produced. However, when the change in seasons and it's getting cold or a little bit more dry or something, then it's gonna start producing the Cleistothecia. And then the mature Cleistothecias they're going to be very small. They're going to be like brownish, black, and then because this is an ascomycete, then it's going to produce asci that are going to be inside the Cleistothecia, and inside the asci that's going where the ascospores are going to be located. So the ascospores, as you may remember when we were discussing about the biology of fungi, are the sexual spores. And then the sexual spores are going to be the ones that are going to initiate the new infections during the next spring, like during the next season. Because of that, it is very important to remove like infested debris from the ground. You don't want to leave it there, because then you're going to have the initial inoculum or the primary inoculum for the following season if you just leave it there. And that's why it's important to just as prevention to remove all the infested debris that might be left on the ground. Powdery mildew disease cycle, what's going to happen is that at the beginning of the season, when you have the Cleistothecia, that is going to have the ascus or the asci inside, and it's going to break open at the beginning of the season, and then it's going to liberate, it's going to free all the ascospores. And the ascospores, whenever they arrive into the right tissue, basically in a susceptible host, what's going to happen is that if the humidity, if the host is the right host and is susceptible, and the humidity is right, then the ascospores are going to germinate on top of the leaf surface, and they're going to produce the germ tube, and then they're going to start kind of like penetrating the cells. And then inside the cells, that's where the haustoria is going to be produced, and it's going to start absorbing nutrients. As the fungus continues to grow, what's going to happen is that then it's going to mature, and then the conidia, which are the asexual spores from the fungus are going to start growing in these chains on top of the leaf, and that's what we see in the symptoms. The conidia then, it's going to go back and it's going to infect new tissue, and that's just going to be the secondary inoculum, just producing what we have discussed previously in other classes, a polycyclic disease. So you just basically it's going to continue like going on and on during the whole season with the production of the conidia, which is the asexual spores. Finally, during the end of the season, when the weather conditions start to change, what's going to happen is that the fungus is going to change its structure, and it's going to start producing the cleistothecia, again with the asci inside, and then it's going to produce the sexual spores, which are going to be and the fruiting bodies, which is going to be the overwintering way for it to survive, and then for the following season. And this is going to be the disease cycle of the fungus. But now I want to share with you a short video about the powdery mildew of wild olive, and this was one that I saw at the Texas AgriLife and Research Extension Service that it's located in Westlake, Texas. Okay, so I am here at the Texas AgriLife Research, Texas A&M AgriLife Research and Extension in Westlake, and these are some wild olives, and it looks pretty healthy. However, if you start to look a little bit closer, maybe you're going to see that some of these leaves have some white dots on top of them. But then, I mean, I just cut one of the leaves. Let's see if you can see those spots better. And I put this here. So this is probably some sort of powdery mildew. If you look at the bottom of the leaf, there is absolutely nothing in there, and the fungus only grows on the top part of the leaf. And this is it's a very classic disease that happens everywhere, and even with wild olives that are, everywhere, like in this region of South Texas. So I just wanted to show you that because this is the classic symptom. I mean, you can see it looks like a powder growing on top of the leaf, but only on the top, and then you look at the bottom, and basically, oops, I was trying to get something into focus, but then you just basically don't see absolutely any symptoms on the bottom, just on the top. So now we're going to be discussing about downy mildews, which are very, very similar to powdery mildews, but they have very essential or very specific characteristics, and they have a very specific differences. And I want to touch both of them because I don't want you to be confused whenever you see either powdery mildew or downy mildew. So one of the major differences is that the type of fungus that is causing the disease is a completely different one. So in this case, the downy mildew is caused by an oomycete. As we discussed in previous classes when we were talking about fungi, oomycetes are not really fungi. They used to be classified as fungi, but right now they are located in a different family, and the reason is because fungi, the major differences is that fungi have chitin in their cell wall, and in the case of oomycetes, they don't have chitin in their cell wall. What they have is cellulose and maybe other components. And then we also discussed about that fungi, normally they are haploid versus oomycetes, where they're normally in the diploid stage. And also oomycetes produce the moving zoospores, which is not the case of real fungi. And they don't produce conidia, which is the case of fungi. So those are the kind of the biological differences between oomycetes and some of the real fungi and ascomycetes, such as powdery mildew, compared to downy mildew. So that's an important difference, and of course, because the biology is different, of course, it's different. Of course, the method of control is going to be different. But But there are also some in downy mildews and powdery mildews. They share some similarities in the symptoms that they cause. First of all, one of the things is that both of them are highly host specific. So the downy mildews, normally they're gonna have, so you may have a rose plant and you may have some grapes, one next to the other, and if both of them are infected with downy mildews, most likely it's a different type of or a different species. It's not gonna be the same. This one is also a biotroph. It's an obligate parasite, so it requires the living host. So it's not gonna kill it right away. It's gonna take quite some time before it actually kills the host. Some of the symptoms is that they produce this white to grayish brown downy growth on the lower side of the leaves. So that's one of the major differences with powdery mildew. Powdery mildew, like if you have the leaf, and this is the leaf surface and this is the back of the leaf, what's going to happen is that downy mildews, they produce the symptoms mainly at the bottom of the leaf. That's where you're going to find most of the spores and the actual mycelium growing, whereas in powdery mildews is going to be on the top. So that's one of the major differences between downy and powdery mildew, because both of them are going to look kind of white. So then it's like how to differentiate if it's downy mildew or powdery mildew, if they're in the top or the bottom of the leaves. So that's one of the major differences. Downy mildews are mostly dispersed by air, and again, if the leaf is wet and so if there's a high moisture in the environment, and also the plants were fertilized with high nitrogen, then they're going to promote downy mildew diseases. And this is just because the leaves are going to be more tender because of the amount of nitrogen that is present. And so in the slide, one of what you can see is the lower side of a grape leaf, that it has the white blotches, but it's in the lower portion of the leaf, in the lower side, not on the top of the leaf. So the way that the downy mildew looks like, and this is just an example in grapes, what's going to happen is in the upper surface and the upper part of the leaf, what's going to look like it's more like a yellowing of the leaf. But when you turn the leaf around, that's when you're going to see the white, grayish, or sometimes a little bit brown spots of the fungus that it's growing, or this oomycete that it's growing. So this is so it is very important whenever you want to see the symptoms, or if you want to do a diagnosis, you have to look at the leaf, but you have to look at the leaf both ways, not just the upper surface. You have to turn the leaf around to be able to see some of the symptoms that are very characteristic to be able to do a more accurate diagnosis. So this is just, again, other symptoms of downy mildew in cucurbits. So this is winter splash, and then you're gonna see the downy mildew. Normally, it looks like yellowish on the top of the leaf, and also on brassicas and cabbage. They're gonna look like necrotic spots on the top of the leaf and yellowing. But then when you turn the leaf around, then that's what's gonna happen. Like you're gonna be able to see the fungus or this oomycete growing underneath. So normally on top of the leaf, it's going to begin as a yellow spots, and then later they're going to become necrotic. And but it can also infect the fruit, and these are just two examples in grapes and in lima beans that you can see the actual white growth on top of the fruits, on top of the vines as well, for downy mildews. If you collect that sample and start like looking under the microscope, what you're gonna see is that the sporangiospores are gonna have this like tree-like structure, and then on top of at the end of this tree, or the sporangiosphores, then you're gonna see the sporangia at the tip, which is which then from there, that's where they're going to open up and they're going to liberate, they're going to free up the zoospores. And zoospores, if you can remember, they can swim because they have flagella, and therefore they can move a little bit more. That's basically the picture on the top of the slide. But then at the bottom we can see some of the oospores, which are the sexual spores. So again, the zoospores are the asexual spores, and then when we look at oospores, those ones are the sexual spores, and these ones are produced in the infected plant tissue as survival structures. And again, it's very, very important to remove plant debris that has been infected with downy mildews. Either if you're pruning or whatever you're doing to your trees or to your plants, and if they have downy mildews, it's always better to remove all the plant debris from the field or from your house or whatever you're removing all the plant debris, so you can take with you a lot of those spores that are gonna help. That are going to be the inoculum for the following season. So that's going to help reduce the inoculum for the following year. So hopefully you can, if the conditions are a little bit drier or something, you won't get as much initial inoculum or the primary inoculum, and then the disease severity is gonna be a little bit lower. So now we're going to change subjects a little bit, or I guess the type of symptoms that we're gonna be talking about. So necrotic foliar diseases are a little bit different. Some of these ones are like leaf spots, which is just basically localized lesions, and then you have blotches, which is just basically expanding areas of drying tissue. So you may start with a leaf spot, but then it's just going to continue growing and it's going to create a blotch. A blight is also necrosis, but it's large areas that are quickly killed. And we're going to be discussing some of this type of symptoms. And then scabs, which are also some necrotic diseases. And it's just basically they create this crusty superficial foliar and fruit lesions that we're going to see some examples of that. So one example of leaf spots is just basically one that is caused by Septoria leaf spot on tomato, which is caused by the fungus Septoria lycopersicide. This fungus is gonna infect the surface of the leaf, and it's gonna cause this very localized lesions on top of the leaf. And then whenever you turn the leaf around, you can also see the necrotic spots on the bottom of the leaf. But it's just basically very distinct lesions that it's going to be causing. Of course, this fungus overwinters on infected tomato debris or also on weeds, and can be transmitted and survive and transmitted in equipment. When the tomato is being cultured and stuff like that, what's going to happen is that the fungus can arrive. Normally, when there is humid conditions, the fungus arrives and start causing a lot of spots. So many times, what's going to happen is that if it's just a very low inoculum, it's only maybe some of the bottom leaves that are going to be infected. But then whenever the inoculum levels are very high, what's going to happen is that the surface of the leaf is going to be covered a lot, and it's going to have the photosynthesis of the tomato leaves is going to be reduced, and therefore what's going to happen is that the tomato fruit is going to be reduced in size, and many times it's going to be, or the yield is going to suffer in that case, and that's what's happened when some of these necrotic diseases, that the photosynthetic area from the leaf is going to be compromised because of all these lesions. Another example of leaf spot is the one that is caused by greasy spot on grapefruit, which is caused by the fungus Mycosphaerella citrii. Basically, this fungus is going to cause small black specks that are going to develop on the underside of the leaf. So in these two pictures that I have here, what you can see is that the top part of the leaf, you can see like yellowing, and it's like, okay, if you just see that, you're gonna be like, okay, what's this? So it can be many things, but then when you turn the leaf around, that's where you're gonna see most of the fungus that is actually growing, and you're gonna have this black pustules just on the bottom of the leaf, and it's just like very localized spots. But these chlorotic spots that develop on the upper side of the leaf, and then the black spots on the bottom, what they're gonna do is at the end they're gonna defoliate the tree. So a lot of those leaves are gonna fall down into the ground, and again, the photosynthetic area of the tree is gonna be compromised, and this affects really a lot the production of citrus, mainly in grapefruit. So it reduces yield, and also it's gonna reduce fruit size. In the case of Texas, a lot of the production, like for example, grapefruit production is for the fresh market. So the size of the fruit is really important. So it's not like if the industry was based on like the juice market, it really the size doesn't matter that much. If it's too large, too small, it really doesn't matter. But in the case of Texas, where the fresh market, it's the one that is the target for some of this for most of the grapefruit production. Really, the reduction in fruit size, it's gonna hurt the growers very much. So last week I had the opportunity to go out to the field and observe some of the symptoms of greasy spot on grapefruit, which I'm gonna show you in this short video. So here you go. Okay, so I'm in a grapefruit orchard, and I see some symptoms here of different stuff, and one of them, it's this leaves. So maybe a grower or somebody may ask you what this is, and you can see on the top of the leaves, you can see like the yellowing and everything else, and you may think, it's like, okay, what's this? And it could be a fungal infection, but then this is if you turn the leaves around, you will see like underneath it is like really black, and that's the classic symptom of greasy spot. I'm gonna take a couple leaves and I'm gonna take them to the lab. There's like younger leaves, although the new leaves are not infected, so they probably applied some chemicals. So those leaves that are kind of like in the middle of the canopy are infected, those ones over there, but the new growth, it's clean, so they probably applied some chemicals to control it. But that's the classic symptom of greasy spot, which I wanted to show you. So as I keep walking, then I find this branch. It's a new growth, and it's heavily affected. But then when I come closer, then I can see all the galleries from the leaf miner. And so sometimes like the leaf miner, obviously it affects mainly the new growth, but you can also see it on mature leaves, and then you can see the galleries really well on top of the leaf and the back of the leaf. So this is some of the things that you may see, and there's some specific insecticides that you would use to control this type of damage. And even like inside the canopy, you can also see it, and like really bad. But luckily they found out and they applied earlier, so it wouldn't get worse than this. But sometimes in young trees you can find it like really severe. Okay, so I'm still in the orchard, and so I'm just looking under this tree, and I can see vines. I don't know if you can see them, but basically it's like this. So it's just these leaves that are closer, like at the bottom, and then you can see it here on this side, and it comes up. But I can see a lot on this side. Let me see if I can do a close up. And so you can see that it's going through the canopy. So I'm gonna go on the other side of the tree. I'm gonna cross between the trees, and And you can see all this area has a vine that is just growing, and it's just growing on top of the tree. And I'm gonna see if stepping back a little bit, you can see it better. It's just barely starting. But in this area, you can see the vine is starting to take over. And eventually, if it's not taken care of, it's gonna cover all the tree canopy. And then what's gonna happen is that the tree, it's going to start suffering. And then eventually it's gonna die. It's gonna stop producing and it's gonna die. Another classic example of necrotic foliar diseases is leaf blight diseases. And one of the most important or disease classic for that causes leaf blight is the bacterium Erwinia millivora, which causes fire blight disease in apples and pears. And in the slides, there's like two different pictures. One is kind of like a close-up, and the other one is a little bit farther away. And it's called fire blight mainly because so when everything it's all infected, some of this branches at basically the end of the branches are gonna basically collapse and dry out and be necrotic like so quickly that it looks like it was burned, like it was just like kind of like fire went on, and that's why it's called fire blight. So the way that this disease or that this pathogen causes disease is just basically it infects the blossoms. And of course, the blossoms, the flowers are infected, then the yield is going to be compromised all the way. So this is a vascular disease. So fire blight basically infects this, or Erwinia millivora, which is the pathogen. It infects the xylem of the plant. But then, so the way that this is transmitted, or how the disease cycle starts, is just basically some of the insects are going to either flies or maybe sometimes it can be bees. They're attracted by some of the in the trunk. They're attracted to some of the ooze that is coming out that is very rich in polysaccharides, and then they can take it to the flowers. So then the bacterium is going to enter through the nectar throats from the flowers, and they're going to start infecting the blossoms. And what's going to happen is that then from there, you're going to be the bacterium is going to slowly start moving into the xylem of the plant, and then it's gonna cause the new tissue or the new growth at the ends of the tree to start dying out, and then you can see all the necrosis, and then you can see all this burning basically look like burned. It's just the necrosis that is just moving down to the trunk, and it's just basically that is moving through the xylem. So in many cases, like some of the new branches or the younger tissue is the one that it's infected. But then if the bacterium reaches the main trunk of the tree, sometimes it can even kill the whole tree. And then in some cases, it's only one part of the trees that is infected, but then at the end, sometimes if it reaches the main trunk and if it gets to the roots and everything, it's just basically the tree is going to collapse and it's going to die. This is a very important disease classic, and it's a very important disease. And this disease, it's affected by many factors. And the high humidity also, it's very, very important. When it's raining a lot, it can also splash some of the bacteria around. But the way that this is controlled is basically with the use of antibiotics. And basically there is no other strategy for control of fire blight disease. So many growers, what they do is when the blooming season starts, they have to spray antibiotics in order to control fire blight disease, and if they don't, then what's going to happen is that it's just the production is going to be very, very low. And not just that, also some strains of Erwinia millivora are starting to create resistance to some of these antibiotics, mainly streptomycin, which is the one that it's like constantly used. And I think it's the one that is the most effective one, but it's the one that is being used for years. So right now they're starting to come this bacterium is starting to evolve, and it's starting to be resistant to this antibiotic. Another necrotic disease is the scab diseases. And again, another example with citrus is just the citrus scab, which is caused by Elsinoe fawcettii. This disease, this fungus, and it just basically produces these pustules, which are a mixture of the fungus and the host tissues. So basically, sometimes, if you, for example, the fruit, which is the most important part of that, the part that is sold, and is sold basically on aesthetics. If the fruit is blemished, it's going to go for the juice. It's not going to be going for the fresh market. So basically what's going to happen, you have the fruit on the tree, and if it's just rubbing on some branches or something like that, it can create a wound, and then the pathogen, this fungus, is going to go in there, and then it's going to start producing these lesions that are, sometimes they can even be raised on the fruit. Last class, when we were in the lab, I took some Satsuma mandarins to the lab, and they had some symptoms of this scab disease, and they were really, really bad. They were like looking like horns all over the little fruit, and it just basically, this fruit, to just render it non-commercially. It cannot be sold as is, and it just basically is going to go to the for juicing, and it's not going to be marketable anymore, and a lot of this disease is just basically really, really bad for the growers. So another type of symptoms that is very, very common is just the abnormal color or form of the leaves. And this is very typical of virus infections. So basically for viruses, what you see the most is just mosaic, mottling, ring spots, also an important for certain crops. You can see that. Rugosity of the leaves, vein banding, stunting of the plants, and some other symptoms are also common for viruses. Viruses often cause systemic infections, which basically they start at lower leaves, and then when they become systemic, they go to the upper leaves, and then most of those symptoms of the mottling and the mosaics, you can see them actually in the younger tissue rather than the older tissue. And many times they're transmitted by aphids, by whiteflies, or psyllids. In this slide, what I'm pointing out is a stunted pepper plant. So I went to the field last week, and I visited pepper. It was jalapeno peppers, and they were looking for some sort of resistance to viruses. But most of the plants, or rather than resistant, it was mostly they were looking for tolerant plants. So that what they were expecting it was to see some of this tomato plant, pepper plants infected with viruses, but still be able to produce a decent crop. So, but at the end, I mean, because the trial had many different varieties or cultivars of the peppers, I was able to see different types of symptoms. One of them, it was stunting, and so you can see in this slide, it's like one plant is like really, really short, and it's like a very kind of like a bonsai right next to one that it's kind of like normal height. Both of them are infected with viruses, but one of them is like really, really has like, it's just severely stunted, and it's like very, very small. In this other slide, in this picture, this is something that this is also the pepper plants, where you can see some of the rugosity. So it's just basically like the leaf starts to kind of like it becomes a little bit bumpy, and so this just like this rugosity and in the leaves, and also leaf rolling. So you can see how the leaves kind of like start curling towards the center of the plant. They can also be caused by insects, but in this case, it's just basically the virus that is just like really curving the leaves. In this other slide, I want to show you the different types of mosaics that you can see. So mosaic is just like the discoloration, like you have some chlorosis and you have some with the yellowing, and then with also some patches that are like dark green. And this is just in the same plant, as you can see. It's just basically the same the flush or tissue that is coming out, and you can see the different patterns. And it's just basically all is caused by the virus. So you can see some of them, there's just like completely like chlorotic, and then with this very dark green parts of the leaf, and then but you also have other leaves that have a completely different pattern, and it's just the same virus, it's the same plant, and it's just basically almost like adjacent leaves, and all of them have these different patterns in mosaics. I wanted to show you this because whenever you go out to the field and you see something like this, you know that all of them are mosaic. All of them. It's not just like, oh, it has to be a specific pattern. No, I mean this the mosaic or modeling, it may have like completely different patterns. And again, this is just the pepper plants that show very different symptoms in the same plant. And the stunting, so some of the leaves are becoming like really small. So you can see that the plant is stunted, that it's not just the height of the overall plant, but also some of the leaves, they start becoming like really small instead of the fully expanded leaves. And also in this picture, you can see the leaf rolling. So you can see that in many of the leaves, you can see the rolling towards the inside. So the upper surface is just getting rolled up. And also you have other leaves where you can see the mosaic also showing up. So viruses in general can be transmitted by insects. In this case, I have some pictures of aphids. So I was able, when I was out there, I was looking at the field, and then I saw that some of these leaves contain some debris, some secretion, and from aphids, and aphids can transmit viruses, and this is most likely how all this virus was just spread out in all of this. In this field is just by insects, just like aphids, and you can see this is just very classic in the very young tender tissue. That's where they feed, and then you can see all the like this white and yellow, black and white, that it's just basically from the aphids. So I also visited a tomato field that was very close to that, to the pepper field. And so in this one, I took some video, and you can see some of the different symptoms as well. You can see leaf curling, but also you can see stunting, and we're gonna also see some of the mosaic as well. So here is a short video on the tomato viruses. Okay, so this is a tomato field in Texas A&M University AgriLife Research and Extension in Weslaco. And this is a tomato field, and it's covered with mulch. So the mulch serves for several purposes. One of them is for weed control and also to save water. And you can see right here that it has the drip irrigation, and then we have the plants over here, but then some of them might be loaded with some viruses. It's a trial where they're trying to find for resistance for viruses. So So we're going to look for some virus symptoms in tomato. Okay, so this is a tomato plant, and you can see some of the virus symptoms. It seems that there's some curling of the plants, of the leaves, and you can see it like here that they're just sort of kind of rolling up like that. So that's a symptom of a virus infection. But also they may have some aphids, or they may have some other things that can trigger that as well. But there's white flies, which are also transmitters of viruses, and there's some leaves on here that look like the new growth just died. It could be part of virus, or it could be something else. But the leaf curling is a classic symptom of a virus infection, although I don't see mottling or anything like that just yet, but probably we'll find it eventually. And then there's a few plants that are missing, but if we move to the next plant, we can see some of the leaves that are fully expanded and are good, but then some of the new growth, it may have some virus infection as well. And we can see it like here, but these ones in particular don't look that bad, like the other field that we just looked at. Okay, so this is some leaf curling again, and then, but if we go to this leaf and we open it up, sometimes you can see the little insects, and I don't know if it's too out of focus or not, but you can see the little aphid feeding in the leaves. So when they start absorbing the sap and stuff like that, they can also make the leaves curl, but they also transmit. They make the leaves curl, but they can also transmit the viruses and stuff like that. So it's most likely that these ones are have like some sort of viruses and stuff, and you can see some a little bit of white flies. They are just present as well in these ones, which are also transmitters of viruses. Okay, so I found another tomato plant, and it seems that this one may have some viruses because the symptoms are a little bit different, but you can see a little bit of the leaf curling, but you can see the mottling and everything, and the leaves are very, very small. So if you look at the bottom leaves before it got infected, those leaves look fine, just like a regular tomato plant. But then all the new growth is just looks like a bonsai type of deal. And you can see the discoloration and the distortion of the leaves. They're just completely distorted, and there's also some leaf curling towards the bottom. That could be from insects, but definitely this one has to be loaded with viruses. We have the fully expanded at the bottom, but then we have the very little ones with mosaic on the top. The new growth is the one that is mostly infected.
That's perfect, right there. You've got all three.
Yes. So in this case, this crosses. We have some. These ones are like stunt, like again as like the other plant. We see like very small leaves with a mosaic in some of these ones, but then right next to it is one that is showing all the leaf curl, and then right next to it we have kind of like a almost healthy plant coming out of this, and then right next to it we have another one that is showing some of the leaf curl. So it's the tomato leaf curl virus, the one that is causing all this. Well, so that's all for today's class. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next class where we're gonna be covering vascular diseases. So this is just a different type of plant diseases. So I'll see you next Thursday. Bye.